I knew this would happen. I knew that as soon as I gave y'all the option to choose which comic I would review next, you would choose the one that I was least interested in. But that's fine. I will reap what I have sown. I have formulated opinions that are stronger than what I once had. And we're gonna break this thing down. I'm warning you though, the most interesting thing in this comic, the most flavor you will find in Absolute Flash is Wally's stupid mullet. Howdy, I'm Kurt Williams, and today we're looking at Absolute Flash by Jeff Lemire and Nick Robles. I don't have issue 1 anymore, I don't know where it went, so we're gonna be looking mostly at issue 2 today. Now, I'm not the biggest DC fan, I never really have been, but this new Absolute line is pretty good. Absolute Batman is killing it, Absolute Martian Manhunter is killing it, Absolute Wonder Woman is killing it, and Absolute Superman is pretty good. It's been a while since I caught up on that. Absolute Flash, I think, has definitely been the biggest whiff of the line so far, which doesn't surprise me all that much, not because I think Flash isn't a cool character. I'm not one of those people who thinks Flash is just, I can run fast, ooh! Because I know that The Incredible Hulk was one of the most consistently high-quality titles that Marvel had to offer, even though most people think of the Hulk as just, I'm big and strong, ha ha ha. So even though I don't know much about the Flash as a character, I don't expect Flash to suck just because his power set is simple. I did kind of expect the series to be underwhelming because Jeff Lemire has not really impressed me all that much. I know that a lot of people like his work. I've collected a lot of his works like Gideon Falls, Maze Book, Little Monsters, Essex County, and though I think he's very imaginative and he can pump out stories incredibly quickly, I don't feel like his stories are all that uniquely impactful. I don't often find them to have a lot of flavor or scope, and that is exactly what I found Absolute Flash to be. Kind of flavorless and not that much going on. Now, what makes Absolute Flash different from the regular universe Flash, because there's something different about every Absolute character, right, is that Wally West does not have the support system that he had in the main DC universe. He doesn't have a family that cares about him, he doesn't have Barry Allen to mentor him, he doesn't have anybody guiding him to become a superhero. Which, compared to the other differences between the Absolute heroes, like Absolute Batman having no money and his mom is still alive as a bonus, or Absolute Superman being raised on Krypton on a farm by a blue-collar worker and then being sent to Earth and landing in South America, I think, instead of North America. When you compare this difference to those differences, it might seem like this is just not that much. And I think that under a writer who could very vividly capture the human experience, this could be just as impactful as those other ideas. Because heroic nature has to come from somewhere, right? Somebody has to inspire you to be as good as you can possibly be. So I think that story could have some meat on those bones, but I don't know if Jeff Lemire is the best one to show that meat. So far in Absolute Flash, we've met Wally West. He lives on an army base with his dad. His mom died a while ago, and his dad is pretty emotionally unavailable. He doesn't have any friends because apparently he's moving from base to base, and he doesn't just get on the internet like most kids in that situation I feel like would be doing. But anyway, he doesn't have anybody to talk to until Barry Allen, one of the scientists at the army base, shows some interest in him. Something goes wrong with Barry Allen's work, and somehow Wally West gets sucked into it and gains these Flash powers, and Barry Allen also somehow dies, but we're not completely sure how yet. And then all we have from there is Wally West running around in the desert trying to figure out his life while this new version of the Rogues Gallery tries to chase him down and maybe kill him, even though they maybe work for the government. It's really fuzzy. And look, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm a better writer than Jeff Lemire, but man, this story is just not grabbing me. It doesn't help, I'm sure, that I'm not already in love with the Rogues Gallery, so the redesign is not nearly as interesting to me as it is to some other people, I think, but I feel like the redesign in general is pretty lame, and I feel like they just kind of showed up out of nowhere and started shooting all of a sudden, but the scene doesn't have that sense of, like, suspense that a surprise ambush should normally have when you meet a villain for the first time, and the characters are all bickering with each other in a way that's not interesting. It's just shallow and lame, and I almost wish that we had been introduced to them one at a time so we could actually take a second to appreciate each one instead of this just group popping up out of nowhere. And it just didn't feel like the best way to throw us into this situation. Like, the first big problem that Wally has to deal with right now in the present is these guys trying to kill him that he's never seen before. But the opening sequence of issue 1 is not, who are these guys and why are they trying to kill me? It's, I'm having an anxiety attack, and also there's some guys trying to kill me, and that's important too, but mostly I'm having flashbacks and an anxiety attack. And I do think it's a little bit interesting that we're dealing with anxiety here, and he has has to kind of learn to control his powers the same way he's had to learn to control his anxiety. That's a good move, Lemire. But man, I just don't really care about anything else in this story. It doesn't feel very unique. It doesn't feel very fresh. It's just another story about fast guy running away from weird supervillains. And it's not until the last page of the second issue that we finally get something that's interesting to me. We see these two parallel universes, two different versions of himself that Wally could turn into. And that's a cool premise, because somebody like the Flash who can deal with time travel and stuff, and he can see alternate futures and he has to worry about which decisions are going to lead him to which alternate future, that's interesting. Surely there could have been some way to start with that and get that premise out in the open before the end of 2 issues of Flash doing nothing in particular. I'm also generally not captured by Robles' art. I feel like it's very standard for modern comic art. It doesn't have a lot that's unique about it. There's no real sense of, I don't want to say there's no sense of artistry there, but he doesn't seem like a master of his craft. And you know, that might just be DC Comics house style. I feel like DC lately has been very plain, bright, and simple. Superhero action comics for superhero action comics readers. But look, I'm not into superhero action comics for the sake of action and superheroes anymore. I want a compelling narrative that's going to make me rethink the way I interact with the world. And Robles' art in this story is, I think, very similar to Lemire's writing in this story, plain. This comic is vanilla. I do kind of like the design work. I feel like the title sequence page and all of the now and then subtitles in here look pretty cool. Not subtitles. What are those called? I don't know. And the colors are also pretty good. I think that especially on the splash pages, the colors do a good job of giving it a little bit of that fresh feeling. But like I said, overall, not a fresh book. So I'm going to give Absolute Flash, the series so far, a score of, I guess, a 6 out of 10. Like, it's okay. If you're into this kind of thing, then it's probably exactly what you want. But for someone who's not a DC fan, who's not a Flash fan in particular, this is just not fresh enough to capture my interest. I am interested in this alternate dimensions thing that started up at the end of the second issue, but I don't know if I trust Lemire to make it really as interesting as it could be. So I don't know. I guess I'm gonna decide if I continue getting this series based on the cover art. As I've been saying, every comic shop in Massachusetts is going to start May 6th. I'm going to 54 comic shops in Massachusetts. This Sunday, I'm going to be doing a live stream again. Last time I did a live stream, we tried to make an entire comic and I burned myself out after like 7 hours, and it was a bad idea. This time, I'm just going to be doing commissions for people who donate. So if you can afford to throw some money towards this trip and make sure comic shops are getting the love that they deserve, I'd really appreciate it. And if you donate enough, which is an exact amount I have not decided on yet, then you can get yourself commissioned by a guy who is definitely not a real artist. So I'll see you Sunday at the live stream. Until then, I'm Kurt Williams, and you are somebody else.